Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha. You're watching this special telecast that we are bringing before you a day after the declaration of results for the 18th Lok Sabha. In fact, the process of government formation has already begun. The National Democratic Alliance, which is set to form the government for the third straight term, is meeting in the national capital in a few hours from now to decide on the next course of action. Meanwhile, the Lok Sabha Secretariat has also begun to welcome the newly elected members of Parliament. Their registration process has begun, for which counters have been set up this time at the Parliament House Annex. Earlier, the process took place at the old Parliament building, which is now called the Samvidhan Sadan. What's remarkable is that the registration process this time is completely paperless. It's being done through a software application which ensures that every detail of the member is registered at one time at one counter. So this will save time and also ensure minimum movement of the members. Our teams are there through whom we will try and speak to the newly elected members and get a first-hand experience about how they find the new registration procedure. But in the meanwhile, in the studio, I'm being joined by two distinguished guests. Mr. Ashok Tandon, he's a veteran journalist and former member Prasar Bharati. Next to him is Mr. Pradeep Kaushal, senior journalist. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Sansad TV. Let me first get in a word from you, Mr. Tandon. NDA is now on its way to form the government for the third straight term. They're meeting today evening to decide on the future course of action. But as a senior journalist, you've seen so many elections. How do you analyze the elections, the mandate that the people of India have handed over to the NDA this time?
Well, the mandate is clear. It is already before the public. But the fact remains that the BJP has fallen short to get absolute majority, which it was expecting, which it got in 2014 as well as in 2019. So that is one outcome of the election, which is quite significant. But having said that, the fact remains that the earlier regime of Modi was also an NDA. It was a coalition. And there were some members of the partners who were in the government also, and some were supporting it from outside. So therefore, it is an NDA government which is going to be formed now, but with a slight difference. Two major partners who were not in the government NDA earlier, like even Nitish Kumar had joined NDA, but it had no participation in the government. And Chandrababu Naidu was not in the NDA at all. He was part of the NDA 1. And now, since it is both the parties are pre-poll alliance. So therefore, the NDA has got majority is beyond any doubt. Now, if they were not pre-poll alliance partners, then one could have understood that there is speculation of realignment, etc. So therefore, both the principal parties which have a large number of MPs, they are all pre-poll alliance partners, and others also. Like JDS is also pre-poll alliance, and Chirag Paswan party is also pre-poll alliance. So therefore, all these parties who are coming together now to join NDA and form the government, NDA government, they are all pre-poll alliance partners. So there is no scope for any speculation, although the India Alliance people are still hoping that maybe they may be able to do some groundwork, and like Tejasvi Yadav is coming along with Nitish Kumar in the same flight. Now, these are certain things which create some kind of a speculation, temporary speculation. But the fact remains that NDA has got an absolute majority of its own, and they are going to form government. Now, what will be the shape of the new government is yet to be decided.
Absolutely.
Because today the NDA partners are meeting. One formality which they will have to do today is to give letters of support to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will go to the President, submit his resignation. The outgoing cabinet has already met in the morning, and the President has already, is going to host a dinner for the outgoing parliamentarians and the minister. So these formalities are already underway. As you said, the registration of new MPs is also underway. So I think in the next couple of days, everything will be very smooth.
In fact, hopefully, as we speak of registration, sir, before I go across to Mr. Kaushal, my colleague Pawan is joining us from the Parliament House Annex. Pawan, किस तरह की तैयारियां की गई हैं वहां पर नए मेंबर्स के रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए? 18वीं लोकसभा है और सचिवालय ने इस बार काफी जोर दिया है कि पेपरलेस रजिस्ट्रेशन प्रोसीजर रहे।
टीना, बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने। 18वीं लोकसभा के लिए जो नवनिर्वाचित सांसद हैं वो पार्लियामेंट में पहुंचने शुरू हो गए हैं। उनकी रजिस्ट्रेशन की प्रक्रिया जो है वो भी शुरू की गई है और लोकसभा सचिवालय ने इसके लिए अच्छे खासे इंतजाम किए हैं। जैसा आपने बताया कि इस बार ये पेपरलेस है, तो 20 डेस्क यहाँ पे डिजिटल डेस्क बनाए गए हैं जहां पे मेंबर्स आएंगे और मेंबर्स जो है अपना जो मेंबर्स पोर्टल है उसमें रजिस्ट्रेशन होगा। और उसके साथ क्योंकि पूरे देश से चुन के आते हैं टीना सांसद, तो अलग अलग इलाकों से आते हैं, तो उनको टेम्पररी जो अस्थायी रूप से जो आवास है उनका, हाउसिंग का मामला है उनको ठहराया जाता है। वेस्टर्न कोर्ट में प्रबंध किया जाता है। बहुत सारे सरकारी गेस्ट हाउस भी हैं, उनमें जो न्यूली इलेक्टेड मेंबर्स हैं उनके ठहराने की व्यवस्था है। उसके साथ ही उनकी चिकित्सा की, उनको जो मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज है, बहुत सारी दिक्कतें रहती हैं कई बार, तो उसके लिए भी 24/7 जो है वो डेस्क बनाए गए हैं। पर इससे पहले भी लोकसभा सचिवालय ने इंतजाम किया है एयरपोर्ट पर और रेलवे स्टेशन पर। जो भी सांसद है, कुछ रेलवे से पहुंचते हैं दिल्ली और कुछ एयरपोर्ट से पहुंचते हैं, तो एयरपोर्ट पे भी हेल्प डेस्क बनाए गए हैं और साथ ही साथ रेलवे स्टेशन पे भी हेल्प डेस्क बनाए गए हैं लोकसभा सचिवालय की तरफ से, ताकि जो नवनिर्वाचित सांसद है उनको कोई दिक्कत ना हो। उनको लोकसभा हर एक जो नोडल ऑफिसर है वो नियुक्त किए गए हैं लोकसभा सचिवालय की तरफ से। आपको मैं बता दूं टीना, इस पूरे काम के लिए 70 अधिकारी, 70 ऐसे ऑफिशियल्स हैं लोकसभा सचिवालय के, उनको लगाया गया है। और ये जो प्रोसेस है ये 9 जून तक चलेगा। खास बात आपको बताऊं कि पिछले कल 4 जून 2 बजे से लोकसभा सचिवालय ने तैयारी की है कि जो भी नए सांसद चुन के आएंगे उनको कोई असुविधा ना हो, उसके लिए प्रबंध किया गया है। एयरपोर्ट और रेलवे स्टेशन की अगर मैं बात करूं तो सुबह 5 बजे से लेकर शाम तक जो अराइवल्स होगा उनके लिए वहां पे हेल्प डेस्क है वो चालू रहेगा 9 तारीख तक। और इसके साथ ही जो मैं इस वक्त EPHA में हूं, जो एक्सटेंडेड पार्लियामेंट हाउस एनेक्सी है, वहां पे ये रजिस्ट्रेशन की प्रक्रिया जो है की गई है। उनकी एंट्री के साथ ही एक वहां पे MPs के लिए लाउंज बनाया गया है जहां पे वो आएंगे और अपना जो इनिशियल पेपर्स हैं वो सबमिट करेंगे और उसके बाद वो डिजिटल डेस्क पे जाएंगे जहां पे मेंबर्स पोर्टल में उनका नाम दर्ज किया जाएगा। जो CGHS की स्वास्थ्य से रिलेटेड जो रजिस्ट्रेशन रहती है वो प्रक्रिया पूरी फॉर्मेलिटी होगी, क्योंकि वो अपने साथ जो है इलेक्टेड पेपर जो सर्टिफिकेट होता है वो लेकर आते हैं, उसकी सबमिशन होती है और सारी चीजें जो मेंबर्स पोर्टल के लिए जरूरी रहती है ऑनलाइन वाली, वो सारी यहाँ पे प्रक्रिया पूरी की जाएगी। हालांकि क्योंकि आज पहला दिन है, ज्यादा लोग नहीं पहुंचे हैं, RSP के NK प्रेमचंद्रन, उनकी रजिस्ट्रेशन हो गई है और उसके प्रोसेस में संसद टीवी भी लगातार जो ये न्यूली इलेक्टेड नवनिर्वाचित जो सांसद हैं 18वीं लोकसभा के, जो पहुंचेंगे उनके साथ बातचीत करेंगे और वो एक्सक्लूसिव बातचीत हम अपने दर्शकों को भी दिखाएंगे। तो पूरी तैयारियां हैं लोकसभा सचिवालय की तरफ से भी और साथ ही साथ संसद टीवी की तरफ से भी तैयारी इसकी कवरेज के लिए की गई है। टीना
जी पवन, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद उस जानकारी के लिए। आप प्रयास करें कि जो भी नए सांसद आ रहे हैं रजिस्ट्रेशन प्रोसीजर के लिए, उनसे अगर कोई बातचीत हो, कुछ नए एक्सपीरियंस वो साझा करें तो हम तक ज़रूर कनेक्ट होइए। इन द मीनवाइल, लेट मी गो बैक टू आवर स्टूडियो गेस्ट मिस्टर कौशल. Let me get in your reaction. The fact, it's pretty clear the NDA is on course to form the government for the 3rd term. The 2 terms also were NDA, as Mr. Tandon rightly pointed out. So even the ally with 1 seat was very much participating in both these governments that the NDA held, led by Prime Minister Modi. The fact, it's a record. The Prime Minister is going to take oath for the 3rd straight term, and this is a record that was held by the first Prime Minister of the country back in 1962 by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So despite the BJP numbers coming down, it's a history in itself that the Prime Minister, the incumbent Prime Minister, sets a record coming in for the 3rd time.
Yes, of course. The only element, which is very significant is that the party is not in a celebratory mode for some reason. So they fail to appreciate the fact that it is a renewal of the mandate they had been given twice earlier. The second thing is that I think this is because they had set their target too high. They were expecting 400 plus, but they failed to appreciate the fact that that was a target. You set a very high target for yourself. The fact of the matter is that the country has expressed its renewed confidence in the leadership of Mr. Modi. This is one. 2, if you ask me what is new as far as the new parliament is concerned, the only difference one must notice is that we are going to have a more robust opposition. The Congress tally has doubled. So in terms of sheer numbers, we can expect a more self-confident, more self-assured opposition. But as far as the government is concerned, it is again an NDA government, and Mr. Chandrababu Naidu and Mr. Nitish Kumar both have renewed their faith in the leadership of Mr. Modi. They are going to offer their letters of support to him. And secondly, one expects that they will also participate in the government.
Mr. Tandon, two characteristics for which the Prime Minister is known for is clarity and confidence. And that clarity is something that we also saw yesterday evening when he was addressing the party workers, that in the third term we have to take some tough decisions which is going to be in the interest of the country. Going forth, what do you think are going to be the priorities of this government?
I think a large number of schemes which are initiated by in the last regime will continue. They were all welfare schemes. So I don't think any constituent of the NDA will have any objection. So therefore, the continuity of the schemes and the policies of the government, like the foreign policy, has been very successful. There will be no problem in pursuing the same foreign policy which led the country to become one of the top global powers, including Prime Minister's own image. But I think the question may arise only on a couple of issues, like as it is, Mr. K.C. Tyagi has already announced that JDU would expect a special status to be given to Bihar. Now, this demand of JDU has been there for a very long time.
And that has been the demand of the TDP also in case of Andhra.
So therefore, TDP was expecting a package because the new capital has to be set up. And all state governments, chief ministers, they expect special packages, special status, and more of the central funds, development funds, etc. Now, that has been the tradition. Now, once they are part of the NDA and they are in the government, obviously it will be a pressure on the Prime Minister, because earlier, if you recall, whenever the demand for special status was raised, the question was, well, other states may also demand. So that question will have to be addressed on a priority basis. That is why apparently K.C. Tyagi has made it public. And another issue would be the caste census. Now, JDU has been demanding caste census, and the census is due, we know, is going to be held very soon, maybe next year. So whether the new government of Modi will accept the caste census, or how will they accommodate this demand of the JDU, that is one issue. And another issue which Chandrababu Naidu may raise is because he has promised 4% reservation for Muslim in his state. So that is part of his manifesto. Yes. Now, these couple of ticklish issues will have to be negotiated very, very, in fine-tuned manner, and very sensitive issues also. But rest of the problems, which all developmental issues, Pragati, etc., all these schemes of the Prime Minister will continue. The nomenclature of all these schemes which Prime Minister launched, I don't think anybody will have any problem. But rest of the people, they were already part of the NDA, like Chirag Paswan, Jitendra Maji, and even Anupriya Patel, they were all part of the NDA earlier. Yes. So these two major constituents who are coming to join the government, hopefully joining the government, they will also have to be adjusted in terms of certain policy matters.
So there will be lots of deliberations and negotiations within the alliance, Mr. Kaushal. But given the functioning style of the Prime Minister, do you think it's going to make any difference to his approach, to the way he sets priorities, and to the way he functions within this coalition?
I don't foresee any such problem. One, Mr. Modi is a veteran leader, so he knows, how the policies which he has set for the country, they were formulated, how are things sorted out. So therefore, I don't foresee any problem with regard to that. As Mr. Tandon pointed out, there may be certain ticklish issues which have to be handled by both sides. But then both have sufficient experience. Mr. Naidu was supporting the coalition government led by Mr. Vajpayee earlier. And of course, his state was getting a kind of, favorable treatment from the central government. But at the same time, even the BJP had put its 3 controversial agenda items on the side. So I think there will be no difficulty in working together.
Hopefully, the Prime
yes.
Minister has indeed expressed confidence, and he said that in the third term, there will be some tough decisions, and particularly with regard to corruption. So we'll go and discuss that with our esteemed guests. But let's listen in to what the Prime Minister actually said, what his exact statement was regarding the tough decisions that the NDA-led government is going to take, that the BJP-led NDA government is going to take.
पिछले 10 साल में देश ने बहुत बड़े फैसले लिए हैं। राष्ट्र प्रथम की भावना हमें असामान्य लक्ष्य हासिल करने का हौसला देती है। ये हम में कुछ कर गुजरने की इच्छा शक्ति उत्पन्न करती है। हमने दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी जन कल्याणकारी योजनाएं चलाई। आजादी के 70 साल बाद 12 करोड़ लोगों को नल से जल मिला। आजादी के 70 साल बाद 4 करोड़ गरीबों को पक्के घर मिले। देश के 80 करोड़ जरूरतमंदों को मुफ्त राशन की सुविधा मिली। करोड़ों गरीबों को 5 लाख रुपए तक के मुफ्त इलाज की सुविधा मिली। राष्ट्र प्रथम की इसी भावना की वजह से जम्मू कश्मीर से 370 हटी। जीएसटी और आईबीसी जैसे रिफॉर्म हुए, बैंकिंग रिफॉर्म हुए। हमने राष्ट्रहित को हमेशा सबसे आगे रखा। आप याद करिए, कोरोना का इतना बड़ा संकट आया, हमने वही फैसला लिया जो देश हित में था, जनहित में था। हमने हर दबाव से अलग हटकर कदम उठाया और इसी का नतीजा है आज भारत दुनिया की सबसे तेजी से विकसित होती बड़ी इकोनॉमी है। राष्ट्र प्रथम की यही भावना भारत को आत्मनिर्भर बनाएगी। इस सदी के भारत को आगे बढ़ना है तो उसे करप्शन पर भी लगातार तेज प्रहार करना ही होगा। डिजिटल इंडिया और टेक्नोलॉजी ने करप्शन के अनेक रास्ते बंद किए हैं, लेकिन ये भी सच है कि करप्शन के खिलाफ लड़ाई दिनों दिन कठिन हो रही है। राजनीतिक स्वार्थ के लिए जब करप्शन का महिमा मंडन शुरू हो जाए और इसमें निर्लज्जता की सारी हदें पार हो जाए, तब करप्शन को बहुत ताकत मिल जाती है। इसलिए तीसरे कार्यकाल में एनडीए सरकार का बहुत ज्यादा जोर हर तरह के करप्शन को जड़ से उखाड़ फेंकने का होगा। इस जनादेश के कई पहलू हैं। 1962 के बाद पहली बार कोई सरकार अपने 2 कार्यकाल पूरे करने के बाद तीसरी बार वापस आई है।
So, you know, the crux of the matter is the Prime Minister has laid out the roadmap for where his government is going to go forth in the third term. He says very clearly, if India wants to stride ahead, it has to strike hard on corruption. Now, Mr. Tandon, this has been the thrust of Prime Minister Modi. I recall even in 2014, corruption was one of the thrusts that the Prime Minister has laid out for. In the third term, before the third term, he stresses on it again. What is it indicative of? What is the kind of corruption that the Prime Minister is indicating that needs to end if India wants to move forward?
Now, if you remember, in the 2004 and 2014, the thrust of the opposition campaign, that is the BJP campaign, was corruption, and on that issue they came to power. And opposition in the last 10 years has not been able to pinpoint even one case of corruption which they could have made an election issue. Now, that is very strange. Normally 10 years of a government, there is an anti-incumbency, there can be corruption allegation, but opposition could not find even a single issue. So therefore, a corruption-free government of the last 10 years naturally has to strike at the root of corruption continuously, not giving up it. So in what shape the new attack on corruption will be, we'll have to yet to see. But corruption, zero tolerance corruption continues to be the mantra of the new government. And on that issue, I don't think there will be any problem within the NDA. So corruption, rooting out corruption will continue, because we have seen so many issues already being tackled on the corruption issue. But the fact remains, which we should not forget, that not a single allegation of corruption against even one minister of the Modi government, leave aside the government also, and there have been huge amount of imports, defense purchases and all sorts of imports, but not a single allegation of bribe. So therefore, that mantra will continue, and therefore I think the thrust of Prime Minister's speech yesterday against corruption is a welcome thing, which all constituents naturally will support, and they will cooperate as well.
And the Prime Minister also expresses hope, Mr. Kaushal, that we have a 2047 target that we have set for ourselves, and when we stride towards that, we will need a holistic approach from everyone across the board. We have now, of course, a formidable opposition in the Parliament, in the 18th Lok Sabha. The opposition is going to be extremely strong. Can we expect that kind of support, especially on issues that are of national interest, in areas of defense, in areas of self-reliance?
Those who are familiar with the style of working of the Prime Minister, they would realize that he is not going to change his style of working. He would be just the same, and he would pursue his policies very vigorously. And this is a mandate for a continuation of his policies. So therefore, he is going to be relentless. His policies would not be affected by the fresh mandate, and I don't think any partner of the ruling alliance is going to create any problem for him. I don't foresee any such problem.
But can we expect that kind of support from the opposition?
Well, why should the opposition support? The opposition is going to persist with its own attitude. I don't think, and I do expect the opposition to get more aggressive. But the question is, do the people of the country buy that narrative which they want to set up? They said, Chaukidar Chor hai. The country rejected it. They said, they try to give the government a bad name with regard to the purchase of Rafale.
Of course, the allegations fell flat.
But everything fell flat because people realized that the opposition narrative had no merit. Then they said, Soot Boot ki Sarkar. But it is such a down-to-earth government, such a down-to-earth Prime Minister. The country rejected all that contention. So I don't foresee any problem, but yes, the opposition would get very aggressive and they will try to create some issue or the other. But that doesn't matter. In a democracy, you can expect all of that from the opposition. The only issue is, are people going to buy that?
Okay.
One thing I may like to add is, see, on national issues or issues of national importance like security, I think opposition in this country has always been very constructive. We must give credit to whosoever
We've
has
seen that
been
in
in
the
the
past,
opposition.
yes.
So if it's a question of national interest, like hosting the Olympic Games, suppose India bids for that, do you think any opposition party will oppose it? There can be so many issues of national importance, security related issues in particular. I think the Indian opposition, whichever party has been in the opposition, they have always supported those issues and they have all gone for national interest. For instance, I will give you a very small example. During the election, there was a tweet by a former Pakistan minister asking people to vote for Kejriwal.
Yes.
Kejriwal immediately retorted that we don't need your support, we can take care of our own issues. So that kind of spirit is there in Indian politics, which is very healthy. So therefore I think the Prime Minister will also not raise any issue which is contentious to the extent that it is detrimental to the national interest. So once it is an issue of national interest and it is in the larger good of the people of India, obviously the opposition will be supporting it.
But you know, the Prime Minister has been known for the kind of development politics that he has pursued over the last, I mean, even when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat and over the last 10 years that he has been Prime Minister. The question here is, did development politics somewhere take a backseat and the caste politics has taken a resurgence, something that was very much prevalent before 2014. The BJP had hoped that India has come out of that politics of caste, but is it a reality check? The results, are they a reflection of the fact that caste politics is very much prevalent and here to stay?
No, first of all, the development politics, all of them have been protagonists of that. Chandrababu Naidu, if you remember, in his earlier regime, he was known for his IT expertise. He used to hold the district collectors meeting every day online. So he has been a protagonist of not only development but also liberalized economic policies. Nitish Kumar also as Chief Minister has been inviting investment in Bihar. So as far as developmental politics is concerned, I think all of them will be on board. Which government and state would not like to have development? So I think as we see during G20, the Prime Minister distributed all the events evenly to all the states, even to the non-BJP ruled states. That was also part of the development politics. So therefore, I think if you continue to pursue positive policies which are development oriented, largely in national interest, I think even the non-BJP ruled chief ministers will also support. So therefore, I don't think any economic reform or any economic development policy will be derailed by any of the constituents. But there is a competition among even non-BJP ruled states also that we need investment. That's why all state governments, they hold their conclaves for investment, etc. So development is a mantra which the country needs, and therefore I think there is a national consensus in favor of developing this country and making it one more step as far as the world economic power is concerned and making India a superpower, economic power. That there is, I think, national consensus on that.
And we hope this continues, Mr. Kaushal, because we've seen how India has been brought by the current government from the fragile 5 to the top 5, if you look at in terms of the economy. And now our aim is to come at least in the top 3. So towards achieving that goal, what is the roadmap going to be? What is the thrust going to be of this government when it comes to matters of economic importance?
I think the existing roadmap remains unaffected by the election outcome. So I don't see any change happening on that count, and India remains focused on its emergence as the third largest economy of the world. And secondly, the new economic policy also places its focus on the construction of the Indo-European corridor, that new trade route which involves the Gulf countries and Israel and then Europe. So India's priorities have been set very high, and I think the Prime Minister is going to pursue that with a very renewed vigor. So no change on account of that.
If we look at the voting pattern, Mr. Tandon, let's get back to the states which have given a setback. In terms of vote share, there's been a very marginal decrease, but that has had a huge impact on the numbers, particularly if I talk about Uttar Pradesh. And it seems if you look at the numbers that have gone to the other side, the caste equations have clearly worked in favor of the opposition alliance. the question that I asked you was in context particularly of states like Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. Do you think that caste politics has made a resurgence in Indian politics, especially in the national politics?
I won't say resurgence. Caste politics has been there in Indian politics right from the beginning. The only thing, if you have a strong leader, if you have national issues, then the caste politics takes a back seat. In this election, there was no emotive issue as such. In a way, it was going to be, as we all know, third term for the same incumbent government. So obviously, there are no emotive issues, there are no issues which can, create some kind of a euphoria. So when there are no national issues or national security issues like what we saw in 2019, therefore the caste comes back into active. And some of the opposition parties were also harping on the caste politics. Like for instance, I must appreciate Akhilesh, the kind of social engineering he did in UP. Not only it was an alliance with Congress, but his choice of candidates also. He fielded only 5 Yadavas and very few Muslims.
All family members.
And he contributed, he in fact gave tickets to the other caste. He in fact made inroads into the OBC because that was the strong point of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So he gave tickets to OBCs and SCs. As a result, at the last moment, even the BSP vote also got transferred to Samajwadi Party. So that social engineering is okay in Indian politics. But harping on caste politics all the time and keeping the developmental issues or the progress of the country at the back burner is not a very healthy sign, which unfortunately has happened in UP this time.
Mr. Kaushal?
So, and I also believe there's no one single reason for a defeat. There are other factors also. For instance, there is a case of local incumbency, so working against a candidate, individual incumbency also.
Anti-incumbency.
So, yes. So, and what happened was that the BJP did change a number of MPs, the candidates in the elections, but in UP, I think the change was not as widespread as it should have been. So, the individual anti-incumbency was also one big factor, and Akhilesh Yadav on the other hand showed a lot of flexibility. He kept changing his candidates. Many constituencies saw a change of 2 candidates, so ultimately a third candidate was given a ticket. So many tickets were changed after the announcement. Secondly, see, the opposition was also able to work out a kind of seat adjustment. So 1 against 1, that formula also worked to its advantage, particularly in Maharashtra, where the opposition alliance was able to work out a seat adjustment successfully. It didn't work so much in Delhi or Punjab. Punjab, though, in any case, they contested separately, but Delhi, yes, even their coming together didn't help them.
Yes.
So multiple factors, but yes, the caste was there as in all elections, sometimes more, sometimes less. But yes, the caste remains one of the electoral issues.
So there has been a few setbacks, but also significant gains, Mr. Tandon. South is something that the BJP has been trying to break that bastion for several years, and ultimately it did happen in a state like Kerala. LDF, UDF, LDF, UDF is something that we've been seeing over the last several years, and we've finally, we've seen how BJP has made inroads in Kerala with the 1 seat of Mr. Suresh Gopi.
Yes, I think most significant gain for the BJP has been in Orissa. Not only in terms of the Lok Sabha seat, but winning the assembly. They did not even project a chief ministerial face. That means they were not expecting to win assembly in Orissa, and we have seen even Naveen Patnaik lost in 1 assembly segment. So that was a very remarkable achievement which cannot be undermined. At the same time, alliance with TDP in Andhra was also a very significant step, because BJP had very marginal presence in Andhra. Joining hands with TDP, Chandrababu Naidu has given the dividends, not only in terms of the Lok Sabha seats,
also
which
assembly,
if you see the NDA tally, BJP plus, we all know there are 16 TDP seats, and the assembly also, BJP has opened an account in assembly, winning 7 assembly seats, although Chandrababu Naidu has got a landslide victory. So this is also inroad into the southern bastion, and in Telangana they have already made their entry, and this time they have won a very significant number of the Lok Sabha seat. Kerala is significant. Although 1 seat they have gained, but the BJP candidates in Kerala were leading in a very large number of rounds, at least on 4 seats.
Yes.
In fact, Shashi Tharoor won only marginally at the last couple of rounds. And so that way, the Kerala vote bank, vote percentage has also gone up highly. Even in Tamil Nadu, where they could not win a seat, the poll percentage, vote percentage is around 20+%. So they have made in Karnataka, they have been able to hold the fort, although marginally the Congress has also won about 8 seats or 9 seats. But by and large, the BJP entry into southern bastion is now established. Earlier it was known only as a North India party. So therefore, and there a lot of effort has gone into it. Prime Minister himself made so much effort in all the southern states, tried his best even in Tamil Nadu and in other southern states also. So to that extent, I think it's a very positive sign that the BJP is now getting into the southern bastion as well.
Mr. Kaushal, since we are talking about remarkable contributions and some of the efforts that have been taken by the government to make the BJP an all India party, what we've also seen the impact of removal of Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir. The voters came out, there was enthusiasm visible among the voters of Jammu and Kashmir. The results have also been favorable. How do you look at this change in a region which had been restive and which had been a major cause of worry in terms of security?
I want to flag 2 elements as far as J&K is concerned. One is the high turnout. That's people have really, that's a kind of support to the removal of Article 370. People have got more integrated, and there is no, that sense of alienation which was there earlier, that has sort of disappeared. 2, it is the rejection of the established leadership of Jammu and Kashmir. So Mehbooba Mufti has been defeated and Umar Abdullah. Both of them have been rejected by people. Though there is a very legitimate concern over the election of a leader who is associated with terrorist outfits and is currently in the jail. But that issue apart, it is a rejection of these 2 former chief ministers, which is very important. Now the challenge before the government is, the central government is to move forward in the right direction without Muftis and Abdullahs, both. So, yes, Mr. Tandon.
No, please
yes.
go ahead.
So now they bring up an alternative leadership. That is the challenge which is there. Yes.
Yes.
No, I may add something to that. See, in the earlier elections, there used to be call for boycott by the separatist elements. Firstly, this time there was no call for boycott. All the contesting parties, including Umar Abdullah, and they were in fact appealing to the people to come out and vote, and that exactly has happened. So this is a message to our neighbors that the people of Jammu and Kashmir are part of India. They are participating in the Indian democratic process. They are getting elected. Some of them are getting defeated also. So the whole world used to watch Indian elections, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. Many countries used to send observers to Jammu and Kashmir to see whether the people of Jammu and Kashmir are participating in the Indian democratic process. So they are now established. There were about observers from 20 countries who were observing Indian election, and they were all watching the Jammu and Kashmir, and especially our neighbor. They must be very disappointed that people of Jammu and Kashmir, they want to live in India. But the fact remains there was a very strategic move by, I must say, Prime Minister Modi, that the BJP did not put up candidates in the assembly, because if the BJP was to contest election in a valley, might be the campaigning would have taken a different turn. Now this time the campaigning was, let us elect our own people and get representation in Indian Parliament. Unfortunately, I would say both the top leaders have lost, but people who have won, they are going to take oaths of allegiance to the Indian Constitution. So once people participate in the democratic process, the sense of alienation also gets reduced.
Yes.
Even though people are elected, like in Punjab, 2 extremist people have been elected, but when they come to Delhi to take oath, obviously they will taking oath allegiance to the Indian constitution. So in a democracy you have to sometimes adjust with those elements also and bring them into the mainstream. The best way to bring them into the mainstream is to get them in participate in the democratic process. To that extent, Jammu and Kashmir, India has succeeded. India has, I won't say the ruling party has, but the Prime Minister's policy has also succeeded. Having abolished 370, if you remember, Mufti Mehbooba used to say Kashmir will burn, nobody will come out to vote. And what has happened? No, there was no violence and participation. But I think the last
And the turnout itself
turnout,
speaks
what I'm
volumes.
saying. In the earlier election, turnout used to be 9%, 7%, and that too with so much of security. And this time we all know the kind of percentage, poll percentage. I think it is a message to the rest of the world when it talks of policy of Jammu and Kashmir.
You know, Sir mentioned about 2 independent candidates who've been elected in Punjab. We've seen how unrestive Punjab has been over the last few years, I mean, especially with support from some outside extremist forces. Could that also going forth be a cause of concern for the ruling dispensation at the centre? Could Punjab be a security threat in the times to come if such candidates win elections, even though they are part of the democratic process, but the fact is that they have the support of forces who are anti-India?
Yes, it's not just the election of 2 people with questionable antecedents. It is the kind of support they've been able to mobilize for them, which should be a matter of concern. And I think there are certain trends which we are missing at the moment, but which need being identified and also addressed.
Especially when we know that we have that's a border state.
Yes.
The security of the Prime Minister has been compromised twice in that state in the last 1-2 years.
Yes. So we have to see why are they getting the kind of support they have got. So those issues, those areas have to be visited afresh, and people have to identify people in authority. They have to address those issues and ensure that they don't get the support of the masses when they take to any extremist side. So that shouldn't happen. The state has suffered a lot in the past, the country has suffered a lot, and this is something we can't afford at the moment. So I think there is a drug trade which has to be checked, then there is smuggling of weapons. All this, I think it's quite a matter of concern, and Punjab being a border state, we have to act very fast.
And then when you have a government, Mr. Tandon, which is not being run from there but from Delhi, the concern, the security concern is much higher for the larger interest of the country.
Obviously, but one reason why these 2 people who got elected got support, farmers' agitation was also an issue in Punjab. And when there is anger on this issue among the farmers, they tend to ventilate that.
Yes.
So it's giving vent to their anger that they thought these are the 2 candidates rather than the political parties. So that could be one reason. So farmer agitation has cost BJP very dearly in Punjab. They haven't got any seat. But at the same time, you know, there are so many regional issues, etc. But Punjab is a border state. I think concern of farmer is an issue which the government has addressed to a great extent, plus the drug smuggling of weapons and support from outside. Now, earlier we used to talk only support from across the border, ISI. Now there is a direct support from Canada. Yes. So therefore, it's an international issue also, and it has already been addressed at the diplomatic level. But I think some responsibility must be shared by the government as well. See, unfortunately, the Bhagwant Mann government is not that competent to address all these issues. He is busy in only, you know, distributing favors to people and then remain in power. And secondly, as you very rightly said, he was literally a remote control chief minister, and that is why the party has suffered. The Congress has got 7 seats, and Aam Aadmi Party, which refused to even share 2 seats to Congress, they have been reduced only to 3 seats. So therefore, these things in politics and diplomacy and democracy continue, but one should not worry, because India is such a large country, such a huge democracy, In that, the governments, successive governments have been dealing with Naxalite movement also. If I may recall, if you give me a couple of seconds, the communist movement used to talk about we will wreck the system from within, but the moment they became part of the system, they became slave of the system. Rather than wrecking the system from within, they ruled this country, they are now in opposition, and at the end of the day, they got decimated also. So, where is the communist movement left in India? So, democracy is one thing where you have to adjust with all kinds of elements and then bring them into the mainstream and then make slave of the system. Democracy may not be the best form of governance, but there is no alternative to democracy also. Once these fringe elements, they participate in democratic process, half of their anger is gone, half of their radicalism is also gone. So, I hope, and gradually we have seen in Jammu and Kashmir.
Let's hope it remains that way, because at the core of democracy are the people, and it's their welfare, their security that should matter to any government. Mr. Kaushal, before 2014, security was a major concern for Indians. After 2014, we had a strong government and efforts were made to check terrorist activities. But if that again becomes a problem, it is a problem for the people of the country.
Yes, as the Home Minister said the other day, that within 2 years, we will root out the ultra-left extremism in the country. So the government is very alive to the current challenges, security challenges. And for Punjab also, I would want to flag one more point. The BJP Akali Dal alliance also sort of manifested a kind of social alliance. The breakup of that alliance also, it has taken its toll. It has given scope, and the Akalis have been weakened, and the BJP has not gained much from that breakup. So I think that alliance issue also has to be looked at afresh, and the BJP, if it takes the Akali Dal along, I think it would again unify the Hindu and Sikh communities more.
Okay. Yes. I'll take one important issue again, Mr. Tandon, because that has not been spoken about enough, and that unfortunately the ruling party could not even bring it up as an issue, which perhaps could have cost them also, is the issue of youth. We are the youngest country in the world today, and the youth needs to be given that kind of opportunity to excel, and that vision, although the Prime Minister has provided that you need not be job seekers but job creators, but the irony is if everybody begins to run after a government job, which are very limited, it will continue to cause a problem and continue to keep giving the opposition to raise the issue of unemployment. What should be the priorities concerning the youth that this government has to set in the days to come?
Yes, youth is a very significant part of our electoral process, the first time voters also. But in the initial phases, if you remember, the voting percentage was not quite high, and because of 2 or 3 successive weekends, the youth tends to go for holiday. That could be one of the reasons, and that's why later on we see the last phase, although it was also Saturday, but it was not a long weekend, and the voting percentage was much better. So youth has to be engaged into the democratic process. As we know, as a young person, you will bother least about election, government, etc. Your priorities are different. But one thing which is common is employment. There is no doubt about it. The Prime Minister has been stressing on self-generation. You become employer rather than you try to be an employee, startups, etc. All these schemes were there, and but still I think we have to go a long way in involving the youth into our mainstream democratic process and addressing their issues. Their
Certainly
issues are quite huge, I must say. It's not only one
they have to be made the drivers of this development journey. Without them, India is not able to.
So the concentration of the new government's policy has to address the youth issues as well.
Certainly. So there are new opportunities, but also certain challenges which have been pointed out and which we've discussed in the program for the new government. The NDA government has already set its priorities. The Prime Minister, in his speech after the election results, did mention that the thrust of this government going forth to begin with is going to be to end corruption, and efforts will be made in that regard. He also pointed out that several tough decisions will have to be taken and will be taken by the NDA government in the third term to ensure that India strides forward towards achieving its goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047. So we'll have to continue to watch how things pan out. The process of government formation has already begun, and as we rightly told you, the registration procedure of the newly elected members of the 18th Lok Sabha is also underway. For now, it's a wrap on this special telecast. Thank you to both my guests, and thank you very much to all our viewers.